let's get ready for our next session, which is going to be a panel. So we have Rob from PwC today and his panelists. Rob is driving this panel, or hosting this panel, on driving business value through responsible data and AI. Rob is the technology lead, impact leader at PwC and an evangelist for the responsible and ethical adoption of AI, and advises companies, governments, and other global stakeholders on harnessing the opportunities of the technology to drive innovation in a way that increases trust. We're very thrilled to have Rob as our host today, and I'll hand over to Rob to introduce the panelists.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be here. I've been working with the Data Science Festival for a few months now. We did a terrific sandbox event in our office a few months ago, and they said, Rob, you've got to come to MayDay. It's going to be brilliant. I said, will anybody come on a Saturday? And I think it looks like there's some interest in AI, so that's great news. Listen, great job so far. There's a real buzz in the room. Congratulations to the team, and I'm really enjoying it so far. So we've got 40 minutes or so to get into a topic which has got a little bit of press attention of late, we might have noticed. And we didn't want to do it in a way that sort of amplifies or gives oxygen to the hype. We want to sort of bring it back a few levels. And just a quick shout out to a friend of ours, Craig Civil, and the team from BSI for a talk in here at 2 o'clock. We're very much the warm-up act. The professionals are turning up later to really bring it to life. So please come at 2 o'clock to Craig's session. Now, what I'm going to do is briefly introduce the panel, get them to say a few words of what we're doing today. And what we wanted to do was really just sort of go through for a few chapters of the AI and data book, because this is such a multifaceted opportunity. But as with any opportunity, there's equal and opposite risks on the other side of the coin. We want to do this in a kind of a calm, sober way with some practical input and some things we're doing as a firm and on behalf of our clients around the world as well. So just quickly to explain who we've got here. We've got, first of all, Liz Ajayi, who's our AI leader for our government and health industry practice. We've got Maria Axente, who's our responsible AI and AI for good leader. We've got Aisha Saleem from our machine learning and AI central team. And as a slight change to the advertised notes, you'll notice that this is not Angus Mack on the end. This is actually Belinda Whittingham, who's our cloud digital and AI talent leader. And we felt that with the topic of today being very much around jobs of the future, employment, we thought she'd be an upgrade. I'm going to see Angus coming in late in about 5 minutes, wondering where I've given his slot away to. So if there's got a lonely man at the back with a beard, that's him. So listen, if we could just get maybe 45 seconds from each of the panelists, starting with you, Liz, on what you do and why you're here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I lead up our AI practice across government and health industries, like Rob said. And my job is to partner with local councils, NHS organizations, central government clients, and anyone who is delivering public services to help them harness the potential of AI across their business and help them use AI to improve the quality of the service they deliver to citizens across the UK. So, every day at work feels like you're doing AI for good, and you can see the impact that you're having on people across the UK.
Thanks, Liz. And Maria.
Oh. Why I'm here.
Who are you? And sorry, drag you out on Saturday, yeah.
So I'm here because of Rob, actually. So 6 years ago, he recruited me to join the newly set up AI Center of Excellence that PwC sets up. And that was the time when we started exploring what's the role of a company like PwC in the world of technology, and how can we bring everything that we know from helping our clients to manage disruption and change and assuring our finances and our technology into the world of AI. It was a phenomenally intense journey to date. We've learned so much, and while for many years we thought that what we were doing around responsible and ethical AI was kind of a sideline to what everyone is doing, those days we are in high demand because everyone is focusing on doing AI responsibly. And probably you've heard governments after governments, organization after organization making bold statements that they are considering those issues to the core. And through the panel, we'll explore how we bring this to life and how we're helping our clients and how we build the AI internally with those principles in mind.
Thanks, Maria. Aisha.
Hi, I'm Aisha Saleem, and I'm an expert on responsible AI. Basically, my team helps our clients to build and scale their AI solutions with confidence so that they can meet like a tsunami of regulations coming around the AI-based solutions, and I work alongside with Maria.
And Belle, not Angus.
Morning, everyone. I'm Belle. Myself and my team are responsible for the beginning of this awesome cycle, which is to bring in the top talent to enable all of these amazing people on stage here and our teams back at the PwC headquarters to be able to do what they need to do and want to do to really push AI to the limit.
Fantastic. So listen, back to the earlier point, we're hearing so much noise on literally a daily basis. And I'll be honest, I've done these talks for quite a few years, and people are asking for like the long-range view, the big forecast, where is this direction of travel going? And I genuinely can't see much further than the end of the day, let alone the hour at the moment. And I do worry, I think, if you're hearing bold forecasts, I'd take them with a degree of skepticism and a degree of salt, because I mean, I sat with Microsoft last week. Even they're struggling to look beyond the end of the year around the roadmap for this stuff at the moment. So I think what I wanted to do today was speak about some of the practical, like no regrets moves, covering this whole array of cloud infrastructure, data strategy, workforce capability, linkage through to things like ESG, and really think about some of the guardrails that businesses can put in place to exploit this. And if I'm being really candid, we've done, the phone's been ringing a bit hot in the last couple of weeks, Marie, hasn't it? The reality is I'm finding that probably 80 to 90% of organizations I'm meeting with at the moment are saying, can I have a chat GPT instance? And the reality is that they're walking around with boxes of paper in the factory at the moment. There's a long way to go around some of the building blocks for this. So I think it's a nice North Star that's creating a lot of hype. One of the things, just to bring it to life, is that this has obviously been around. Everyone in the room is an expert here. I don't need to tell you guys what you already know. But this decades-long journey to get to this point really does finally feel like an inflection point. And it came home to me 2 weeks ago when my 7-year-old daughter, Neve, she now wants ChatGPT to write her bedtime stories because daddies are so awful. So I'm like the first victim of job automation by generative AI. Here I am on the stage. So yeah, and they're pretty good stories, I must be honest. What I thought I'd do, just to kick things off really, is go around the panel around, okay, if this is an inflection point, if there are opportunities unbounded to solve some of the most intractable problems in business and society, to drive economic growth, to improve jobs, to really think about some of the upside, what's stopping us getting there? What are the barriers? What are the challenges and key considerations that is going way beyond the CDO or the CIO function now into the breadth of the entirety of business, and bringing in stakeholders in the standards institutions in terms of government regulation and beyond as well? And really, to kick things off, maybe Maria, if you could maybe just give us like a very high-level whistle-stop tour of what we're seeing around sort of the ethical and regulatory considerations that have happened so quickly in the last few months.
That's been an interesting few weeks from our perspective, because everyone started to talk about it on different stages. And I think there was the inflection point in this conversation was the famous, infamous letter, depending on which side of the argument you are, signed by likes of Joshua Bengio, Stuart Russell. They said, hey, this is getting serious. We should pause. We should think. And while what they were proposing in the letter was a little bit of a stretch, a pause in development of powerful model than a GPT-4, what they actually achieve is a lot of attention from politicians, which we didn't have in the past. Rob and I have been talking with a wide variety of stakeholders in the last 6 years, including regulation and public policy, but there wasn't that sense of urgency up to that moment of the letter, and that changed everything. And I think that was the moment when you started seeing government after government, president after president coming on the stage and say, this is serious, we have to address it. So much so that last night, G7 leaders have come together and say, this has to be regulated, there need to be some guidelines in place. The age of moving fast and breaking things have passed, and now we need to come together to address that. And I will accumulate that with what we have done as a firm. We are a global firm, and about 3 weeks ago, we've announced $1 billion investment in AI, which is a serious statement. $1 billion for PwC is quite a bit of money. So take those two events and put it together that demonstrate that this time is serious. And why is this serious? You guys know this. Technology is there. And now we're going through a social revolution, meaning that we've now put it in hands of millions, hundreds of millions, and we went from being the beneficiary of an AI-driven output, of being creators. Now we create content of all sorts of kinds, we play with it, and basically we see firsthand what we can do with it. And that's extraordinary. both in terms of how we can innovate, but also how we can ruin things. And that's where we come in place. How do we make sure that we bring all the research, all the tools that have been created, open source, proprietary, in the last 10 years, and put it up front on the same level where this tool is going to help us solve all the problems we have, but being able to modulate benefits with the risks.
Yeah.
And I'm pleased to see this, but I'm also a little bit cautious because we've had big statements in the past. Rob and I, we've seen almost tempted to say the request from our clients on build me a ChatGPT with the request in 2017 when we've heard a lot build me an AI.
Yeah.
So I think we've seen those big statements. Now I want to see action, and I'm hopeful in the same time that action can come from politicians who have the ability to drive the urgency, allocate budgets, and support the regulators. They've been doing fantastic work to help us prepare for the world of AI.
Yeah. One thing I'm always mindful of when these conversations come up, and we've seen the Sam Altman and Gary Marcus presentation in the Senate last week, which was a fascinating 3 hours, actually. I'd recommend watching it. Far better than the Facebook one from a couple of years ago. At least the senators were quite well briefed on it, weren't they? I always worry, though, about who's in the room shaping it. It's all well and good big business like ours saying this, regulators, governments, etc. But it's always like we should do this, the royal we. And what do we mean by we? And Liz, I was wondering if you could just lean in on this around the citizen aspect of this, because I don't feel that really it's got cut through yet. It's only just starting to. And I don't find people have got any real awareness of the implications of this. And what are we needing to do far better to kind of raise the bar around incorporating the voice of the citizens in this?
And that's a brilliant question, Rob, because I think we're now at an age where any real sort of transformation and impact through AI would need to be citizen-led. And I feel like everyone would need to be part and parcel of shaping how this technology is used for society, but also, how it helps them become more productive, and how it helps them and how it improves sort of, the quality of their lives. And if I think about the work that I'm doing with public sector organizations, it's very much about how we use AI to improve sort of benefit management for citizens, how we use AI to reduce homelessness, how we use AI to improve independent living for people that are blind or have disabilities. But it's great to drive all of that. It's great to drive a step change in all of those areas with AI. But what's even more important is to make sure that any solutions and advancements in this space are user-led, right? And you're not building AI systems without getting people that are going to use it in the room, empowering them with the knowledge, understanding, and skills they need to be part of the design, and making sure that they're part of the journey, right? And I think that is, an area where we'll start kind of seeing public sector organizations kind of step up and take AI, sort of move AI from being a lab experiment and something they do, for themselves, to actually driving it as a citizen-based, community-based program, get everyone involved, make sure that they use that process as well to upskill people and help them sort of build the skills they need to not just interact with technology, but to help them become future-ready, I guess.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Thanks, Liz. Aisha, this is a pretty cool time to be a data scientist and machine learning engineer, isn't it? I guess you've had a fair bit of work to do in the last few weeks, haven't you?
Yes.
Just a quick counterpoint to this, though, is that the entire conversation is going down Gen AI at the moment. And I'm worried that actually this ignoring where the real sort of utility and enterprise value is coming from around simulation, optimization, other techniques. Can you maybe just lean in from your perspective about what this means to you personally and where you think this is going as well in the next sort of few months or so?
I think, as you mentioned, right, AI is everywhere. Even the small organizations are using it at some point, right? But what we see as in the market is almost everybody is using it internally for, to improve their production, improve their revenue, etc. But they're not like confident enough because a lot of technologies relevant to AI is more like a black box, and there's like a lot of regulation coming in towards AI. There's like a lot of customer awareness coming in towards AI, and organizations are not confident enough that the tool that they're using internally is this good enough that they can, scale it and use it in production and actually get some benefit out of it. They want to do it, but I feel like they are not very confident enough because it's not easy to understand AI. It's more like a black box technology. So that is where, I see like a lot of opportunity that, we help them to basically scale and build something with confidence so that, we see that, we actually help them implement responsible AI in every stage of the implementation and production. And we help them validate their processes. We help them validate their models and their systems, and we help them produce solid proofs that they can use if regulators come into the picture, if customer asks them some questions around it. So they should be able to understand it. They should be able to understand the drivers of their models and their systems, so they're confident to actually scale it to production. And in terms of Gen AI, I think there's like a lot of boom going on that side as well, and we need to be ready for that as well. So I can't speak for the forum at this point. I think it's a very at the initial stages, but we are trying to actually build our capabilities around LLM. We are seeing that they're different. It's difficult to, that's my personal perspective. I think it's difficult to basically generalize the LLMs in generative AI, but we are trying to understand and evaluate the specific use cases around generative AI, and we are seeing that with our limited knowledge and capabilities, we're trying to understand what's the risk around it, how we can help implement the right controls around the specific use cases of generative AI, so that people, the firms can still take use of the power of this LLMs, and especially ChatGPT and these kind of stuff, but minimize the risk around it. So there's like a lot of work going on this domain. Yeah. And I think just to add, as Lizzie mentioned, that there's like a lot of customers' perspective in here as well, where we see that we also want to take customers into building this. So this also comes to another problem where that problem that I see is that there are like a lot of different figures involved in basically AI, right? So they're like modelers, and then there's like data scientists, but there are also business people that actually don't understand the technical details and technical issues, but they're like technical people who don't understand the business priorities, and so it's a problem to actually implement the right processes and tools through which all of them can collaborate together, and so that the technology could move forward, but bring in like lots of different people and opinion and processes together.
Just to build on that, Aisha, I'm judging by the interest on our stand earlier. Clearly people are thinking about how do they optimize themselves for employability going forward. I mean, just from your recent look at both AI generally and Gen AI specifically, would you say there's particular certifications, particular skills you'd recommend people focus on to enhance their ability to make the most of this opportunity in the market for jobs?
You mean like specific to Gen AI?
Yeah.
I think it's too soon to say something about that. I think it's, it's still in a lot of experimentation phase, right? So we know that different vendors are releasing different kinds of generative AI, different tools, but it's still very much in the exploration phase. So everybody's trying to understand how that operates, right? But yeah, as with our limited understanding, I think what we can say that, we can actually understand that what could be the risk around it. We can help them minimize it. But this brings into another problem as well, that, there's also a problem of control around it. Who's using the tool could also change the risk around these tools. So if common person is using the tool, so the risk would be different rather than an expert is using the same tool for something. So the regulations would be different around that.
Maria, please. Yeah.
Since we are here talking about what courses you should take, please don't overlook ethics. It's very important for you as data scientists to understand why us as ethicists put so much emphasis, and we break sometimes the doors to position ourselves at the table with the technical teams is really important. We can't do it without you guys. No matter how good controls and framework we put in place, ultimately, We will do a better job if everyone will behave with an ethical mindset in mind. And while I know that many of our universities have taught ethics as a non-compulsory, optional module, I think it's really important now to become one of the core modules. So please, please keep an eye on it. You can play. There's a lot of open source materials, plus there are courses and certification. So please have a look at that. And if you have any question, comment.
And a quick question on the talent piece to you, Bel, because this I remember viscerally about 8 years ago going to a conference like this, and they had an engineering lead up on stage, and someone asked that question to him about downside risks, tertiary consequences, and he quite clearly said, "I'm just the engineer. That's not my department." It's like total derogation of duty there. Bel, I mean, are you seeing that particular skill around ethical conduct, around responsible sort of approach to technology adoption, is that something you're starting to look at on your talent pipeline?
I'll be very honest, at the moment we're not, but I really think we should be doing. I think that one of the challenges for anybody who's working in the technology space is that we have so many options, don't we? There are so many certifications out there, and it's quite overwhelming to know which ones you should go for. I mean, my comment back on that is, do the ones that really interest you, but most importantly, think about actually utilizing it. It might be in your own use case, or it might be in a practical work environment as well, because actually for me, when I'm reading your CV, what I really like to be looking out for is how. Not what, but the how you have utilized that information and applied it in as much as a real-world scenario as you possibly can.
Yeah. Just staying on that point, I know this is a really interesting topic to everyone at the audience today as well. I mean, it's really hard to make sense of this market for jobs at the moment, isn't it, off the back of this? On the one hand, we're hearing these huge tech layoffs. On the other hand, we're hearing this supersonic growth in this particular facet. What's going on at the moment?
I think that we're seeing a step change in the way that technology is consumed, not only kind of on a user basis, but by corporations as well, how they utilize it internally. So I think that one of the key things for everybody in this room and for all of your colleagues is to think about what do you enjoy, but how you might pivot as well. Because the beautiful thing about technology, it's always evolving. So for technologists, this isn't a surprise that we're here, but it's going to keep moving as well. So your mindset needs to be, how do we keep moving? And it might be that you're actually having really different conversations with the organizations you work for and saying, well, we can see this happening and we want to be upskilled on this. How do we get access to this? There's loads of free resources around, but importantly, if you've got if you've got tech alliances with some of the big corporations that do the certifications, is get them into your building, get them to come and talk to you. And again, it really helps you to work out what are your priorities and how you might apply that into your work environment.
Yeah. I should just add, I'm going to give some time at the end for questions if anyone's got anybody, so please start saving them up. We'll have roving mics going around, and I'll get the nod when there's time to do that. I'm tempted to go down back to this point, though, around responsibility, around ethical conduct, and bring out the latest, sort of buzzword prior to this as ESG. So environmental social governance is absolutely, along with technology, probably the two things we're doing the most work on at the moment in growth areas, and how the two intertwine is really interesting. So there's all manner of issues from an environmental perspective. Some of these language models are incredibly energy intensive, Aisha, aren't they? The governance implications, Maria, maybe we'll pick up on that to another level of depth. And Liz, on this social agenda as well. I mean, this is now not just nice to have, it's not sort of ethics washing, it's way beyond like CSR. Yeah. Do you see in some of the clients you work with a bit of a shift in terms of the emphasis upon this alignment between ESG and technology?
Absolutely, absolutely. And, most times when we contract, particularly with public sector organizations, they want us to make a commitment that we're not just going to come on board and build a shiny tech solution, but we're also going to look at how we help them deliver, on their community responsibilities and agenda. So I think is now kind of front and center that, as well as thinking about how they can continue to harness technology within their organizations, they need to think about doing it in a way that is responsible, sustainable, but also drive social value.
Right.
And I think...
How do you measure that?
How do you measure that? And I think, the starting point is being really clear about the outcomes that you need to deliver for citizens in this space. And we did a piece of research a couple of years ago and found that 2 out of 3 children in primary school would do jobs that don't exist. Right? And there's a massive, massive skills shortage, particularly in the public sector around tech, digital. But also, if you look at the community and citizens across the UK, a lot of people don't have the digital mindset, skills, and confidence they need to work with machines, to work with AI, but to also kind of reinvent themselves as the technology advances and changes the nature of work. So organizations are sort of shaping outcomes that they need to drive around skills, the skills agenda, both for their workforce, but for the
digital
communities
skills
they serve.
as well.
Yeah, exactly, digital skills. And that covers data, AI, and various sort of foundation digital skills around IT and infrastructure as well. But there's also this element around, mindset shift around digital and getting everyone understanding that we all have to work with machines, and machines and AI are here to augment us. They're here to take away the boring, mundane elements of the work we do. So a lot of the organizations I work with, when they're thinking about, how to partner with us to drive social value, they're thinking, right, how can you help us change the mindset that people have around tech and help them see it as as something that will augment them. And I think the third piece is also kind of thinking about, like you said, how they use it to make sure that they're sort of building a better future.
Right, yeah.
Both in terms of, the environment, both in terms of sort of moving the dial on diversity and inclusion agenda. So as I said earlier, it's not just about building a tech solution or doing a tech transformation program. It's about looking at how you sort of extend the outcomes of that to build the skills, the mindset that people need for the future.
Yeah. So just to sort of connect these 2 dots into Maria and Aisha as well. So we saw, didn't we, way before this latest kind of like flurry of hype, this explosion in ethical principles, Maria, didn't we? Everyone had their own ethics. Our AI, thou shalt be transparent, fair, and good for all mankind. It was like nice window dressing, but it was lacking real rigor in terms of operationalizing this stuff. So connecting what Liz is saying about this growth in that ESG mandate for organizations to adhere to, how are you seeing this cross-cut in terms of how companies are actually operationalizing that on the ground when it comes to AI projects?
I want to add something to what Lee said about empowering or designing AI that's citizen-centric.
Yeah.
There's a bit of a journey to do this. Obviously, we have the whole discipline of UX design and customer-centric design that is very helpful to understand the customer needs when you bring it into the digital world. I think there's an element here that's been ignored for a while by the government, where I wish our government will spice up their game, is how do we enable citizens, knowing that 50% of UK population doesn't know what 50% is. Just Google it, there's a research done. So with a technology as sophisticated as AI, we keep on asking or expecting people to come and step in. It's impossible. So how do we make sure that their voices are represented? How do we make sure that we tap into the depth of technical skills of our community, to make sure that we keeping an eye on all those algorithms and represent those silent that perhaps cannot represent themselves. That's one. But secondly, we can't really think about participating in AI if we don't know what it is. Across the channel, the European Union have actually used a course that was developed by some of our friends in Finland, the elements of AI, that has been going across Europe and educating millions of people on what AI is. And we've been advocating for this type of approach in the UK. Can we have a course to actually tell people what is AI, how it's being used in our day-to-day life, and how we expect expected to participate in the whole AI equation. And I think having that element will allow our companies to be much more honest in how they align their AI solution with a set of values. Because one of the things that didn't work well is that despite the fact we had principles and framework, the solution that were developed that ended up being racist, discriminatory, and enhanced a lot of the evils in society, because what AI does is mirrors who we are as organizations, groups, and society. And if you don't do anything to solve the problems that we have as humanity as a group, AI will replicate that, no matter how many technical fixes you put in. So it's on us to start fixing what's wrong if you actually want to have AI that's safe and explainable and so have you. And we've seen so many cases of bad AI that in fact was a reflection of the organization. Bad AI repositories, plenty. Go and have a look. It's very interesting and reflect how, no matter how many guardrails company put in place, AI told them off and say, hey, maybe it's not the way you think you are. Maybe you're not as diverse or inclusive you are. And that's the slight shift. I mean, everyone has tried, and some of them, bless them, they've done a good job in putting the right structure in place, but it's not enough. And the last thing about the governance of AI, we've been reflecting on it for a long time. And we've tried, obviously, to bring our learning from governing technology into the world of AI. It's okay right now, but imagine when AI becomes the main technology in an enterprise architecture, it's going to be humanly impossible for us to keep an eye on an AI. So if you guys are thinking about leaving your job and starting a new business, think about AI that will control other AIs. I think it's going to be a big, big business in the year to come.
You've gone to my favorite subject of bad AI, Maria. We're going to have a whole Q&A on this. Okay, this is my favorite from this week. Not favorite, yeah? This one tweet I saw from a guy was suggesting that they have like augmented reality glasses and ChatGPT, and it would prompt good pickup lines to women. It was calling it charisma as a service. Where do these people come from, you know? And this actually brings me to a great point, Bal, doesn't it, around like what a data science team of the future should look like. And it might be an issue around the previous homogeneity of teams, possibly. Hopefully we've kind of dispelled that notion today that there are women in the field. So I think in terms of some of the broader skills that you tend to look for when you're pulling a team together, could you maybe just espouse upon a bit about your thoughts around this? What do you, apart from the hard technical skills we can test for?
Sure. I think the key skills that make somebody stand out for us are your ability to solve problems. What we're looking for is different perspectives. You've heard from everybody on the panel today. It's really important to have different perspectives in the room. This technology can only be optimized if you have different points of view coming in at all points of the process. That's from capturing the business requirements from one of our clients, for example, through to integration and actually checking back in with the client to ensure that is it actually delivering what we promised it would deliver? And if it isn't, how do we make it better? I think that some of the skills that we are going to need more of going forward are actually going back to a lot more coding skills. I think that the advantage of AI means that actually you can do mock-ups far more quickly. I can bring Aisha into the conversation at this point to comment on that.
I think I would also add a lot of statistical skills as well, because we need to build statistical proofs and these kind of things for the regulators. And I think I would just add to what Maria said, as we think that if you want to, a lot of data science skills as well, but also making sure that you know a little bit about regulation and ethics around it, so that you make sure whatever you're building is also something that you can commercialize and actually present it to where everyone is represented, the different population is represented into the data, and it also meets regulations and requirements. So you're building something, but you're also building it responsibly.
I totally agree with Aisha. I think that there's this much bigger layer of accountability that's going to be part of how we build technology going forward. Yeah. And I think that if I take my job, it's already impacting it. We use a AI platform on our talent talent pages, our career pages at PwC. It's fairly new. You can actually interact with the chatbot now, and it suggests roles to you. Pretty neat. But my concern on that is, how does that impact everything that we stand for as a firm in terms of social mobility and building diverse teams? And I don't have that data yet, but I am already working with the data teams because this is a brand new platform.
I mean, there's a point. I need to get some questions as well. I've got some time has been waved at me in the audience there. The reality is like there's this kind of use case criticality issue as well, isn't there? I was talking to people earlier about this. If you get a Duff Netflix movie recommendation, it's so what? I'm expecting it to be a bit bad. It will be probably Liam Neeson in another identikit film again, because that's all I watch. Maybe Gerard Butler. I'm so narrow. But realistically, when you start getting into use cases of significant consequence, regulatory complexity, meaningful harm, we're not unleashing this stuff for a long time, realistically. There's got to be humans in the loop. And one thing we know about Gen AI, and I'm not sure if this has been broadcast live, it's a prodigious bullshitter. It says things with extraordinary confidence, doesn't it? And the worry here is that I think if you've not got an expert scrutinizing it, auditing it, you know, there's a real risk you can take that at face value, and that can leak into some real downstream consequential harm. So listen, we're going to get into some questions. I wanted just quickly to wrap up with the audience of, if we get this right, if we get the guardrails in place, if we get the data in a good place, if we get, you know, the right approach to cloud strategy, if we get the, you know, the ethical frameworks operationalized, if we consider the ESG and the socioeconomic considerations, if, what are you most looking forward to, Liz?
So I'm looking forward to AI really transforming healthcare particularly, and helping doctors detect things like cancer quicker, but also helping them become more preventative and providing proactive interventions before sort of those diseases and conditions arise. But what I'm mostly excited about is everyone being able to use machines to do more with less. And I've always said this, that, you know, I'm looking forward to a point where I can do 3-4 day weeks because I've got an AI doing a lot of the boring stuff for me.
Good to me, yeah.
So that's really, really exciting,
Nice.
isn't it?
Yeah, Maria, quick one from you.
I think it's similar to what Liz said about machines taking the boring task, but, because there's a caveat here, it's not just to have more time generally, so that we consume it online with games and platforms or any digital, in the digital space, but more to have time for ourselves.
Yeah.
How can we put aside the boring task and focus on us and rebuilding relationship, because we know that digital is hampering the relationship and eroding who we are as a people. So probably I'm very excited for us to turn that around and say, hey, who we are as humans, now the machine does so much for us, and how can we improve who we are as individuals and as societies?
Very good. Quick one from you, Aisha.
I think I would just say quickly, I think I would be very excited to see how these, you know, algorithms change these programming stuff, right? Like, you know, if they can generate like programs for us and we can actually focus on building the right architecture around it, it would be really amazing, right?
Yeah, definitely. Belle?
For me, categorically, it's about fair access to work. So I want to see technology being used for good, to ensure that people know that they can choose and be really successful in a tech career.
Lovely. Most optimism. Right. Questions from anybody? We've got a few. Before I take one from you first, we get one microphone here. I just want to say, Angus has made it. Angus, please stand up and wave. He's got train, car, 2 trains, back again, another taxi. He's made it. You'll be in our stand later, Angus. Hang around and chat to people. Thank you very much. We had to put Bella in your place. I think you'll agree she's done a good job. Yeah,
You're welcome, Angus.
Microphone here, please. Yep.
Can I just check?
Well, thank you so much. It was really wonderful listening to each one of you. And I must say, I can feel like so much women power here on the stage.
Sorry to let you down.
Yeah. Well, my question is that we know that AI has been around like more than a decade, you know. But now that these new Gen AI and LLM model has come into picture, there has been a revolutionary breakthrough in the domain. So how PwC, as a very big institution and market driving force, is viewing responsible AI in new light, like as compared to before Gen AI and after Gen AI? So that's like one first part of the question. Second is how, if each one of you can comment on what you would like to preach as industry influencer to consolidate like one step toward taking responsible AI to actually implementing it, because as we know that AI still is like a black box to majority. And then we are talking about putting ethics over it. So how difficult it would be to put an ethic to a thing which we don't know. I mean, majority don't know.
Craig, can we have your session? We need some more time on this. It's a huge question. And come to our stand afterwards. Maybe just brief remarks. I want to get as many questions in as possible. Maria.
Of course. We have a toolkit. It's called Responsible AI. We've been building it for the last 6 or 7 years. And we say that whatever the core principles should be applicable in generative AI, and they are applicable. So Aisha and our team is working on that. And we are exploring a couple of directions. First of all, to make sure that we understand the governance of generative AI supply chain. That's quite complex. Previously, we've been focusing on in-house builds, but now we are functioning part of a supply chain. So we need to understand the roles and responsibilities of likes of Microsoft and OpenAI and Harvey and Midjourney and what have you. Secondly, in being able to use our soon-to-be-launched digital ethics principles next week to actually identify the key risks. And some of the risks are similar, like the risk of bias or privacy leaks or lack of transparency with the whole of AI in general. But what we are doing is making sure that we understand all the risk taxonomy and then applying a risk-based approach at context level. We have hundreds of use cases. We've cataloged them. Now we are ranking them based on the level of risk. And then we apply this risk-based approach to understand, in this specific context, using AI in summarizing contracts, for example, what are the risks and how do we mitigate it? And probably the last bit will be how do we go further in the future when ourselves and our clients will deploy this part of their processes. How do we have a right wrap-up around managing the disruption this will bring in terms of job structure, in terms of well-being, in terms of safety of people using it, and making sure that there is a long-term strategy when using AI, not just a short-term focus.
Very good. Quick, how long have we got, Karen? Okay, so quick question there, and then the gentleman behind, and then we'll go for lunch.
Okay. Yep, I'll try not to stop everyone from going to lunch. Right, so thank you very much for the talk, very interesting. I think summatively, that's like 2 questions. So I think just hang off the bit you talk about how the future of AI is going to be the user or customer driven. So I would like to ask, have you any thoughts on the society becoming more polarized in the sense that people are into AI, into technology, and people that are just don't have a flying clue about anything data related. And off the back of that, I think another question just on top of my mind is, do you think learning programming or learning stuff like, even AI is something that should be put into the school curriculums?
We'll take the same question from the gentleman behind in one go, and I'll group them up. Did anyone have a view on the first one at all? Aisha or Maria? Yeah. We'll wait for the next chap to speak.
Okay, thank you for having me, and also thank you for the talk you just gave. I'm a little bit concerned about, let me say, as PwC, I'll say later in the market, how do you consider working in open source community? Because most of the time your clients are institutional clients, and a lot of progress has been made in AI in the open source community. So how do you influence that community which actually doesn't work in a box? Yeah.
So it's a great question. I'll quickly speak to that one, and then I'll hand back to the ladies for the other one. So has anyone seen Emad Mostak at Stability AI on the news recently? Extraordinary organization, and of course he's really championing the whole open source approach to this. So I don't think it's all about these closed models. I think there's much more progress to come and innovation to come in the open source community. So I think we'll see more plurality in terms of that. So I think watch this space. It's still early days. We're seeing a lot of reaction off the back of some of these demands on regulation from the Senate hearing as well. But on the point about...
I think, I can answer that. I think your question was more around, do you still require to learn programming and stuff while AI is there? Is that right? Yeah, I think like with the LLMs and a lot of complicated black box AI, there's still like a need for a kind of a human validation, right? So you still need those skills to validate AI because it's still in very initial phases. So you need like a lot of validation that what's going on, is it even correct, or you need to maybe change it. There's like a lot of requirement to we still need like a lot of ground truth data to validate what's going on. So there is obviously like a lot of need for skills from humans as well in this. So it's a long way to go, I think, where AI will just take over everything.
Very good. So forget AGI, forget existential risk. The biggest risk is holding you folks back from your lunch. So listen, it's been a brilliant conversation. We're at the stand all day, many colleagues here. So final word to say thank you to Belle, to Aisha, to Maria, to Liz and Angus. And I've been Rob McCargow. Thanks very much for your time. Cheers.
Thank you, guys.